But you really got to shed those limiting beliefs and recognize that you are valuable. You bring immense value to the world. And just imagine how much more your business could grow if only more people knew about you. So get out of your own way. A lot of people will say, well, I'm just not ready yet. Trust me, you are.
What's up, y'all?
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Adrienne.
And this is the Two Mics,
Two Glasses podcast,
where two best friends discuss business ownership and life. So, what's going on with you, boo?
What's up? Nothing. Not a lot. I'm super excited about our topic today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because so we're talking about PR, how to get started in the PR field. And I feel like PR is like something, my personal knowledge of it is low. And I think the common entrepreneur's personal knowledge of like how to get in the media, get on the news.
Well, you know, a lot of people think that they are journalists and that they are PR reps and stuff because they on Twitter and they got blogs and stuff. So I think it'll be a very good thing to hear from a professional.
Yeah.
Just so we can see the differences and, you know, like it's not the same, you know, but people, you know, they don't like to differentiate these days. So we gotta school them on what's up.
And like people that go viral are not the only ones that can get PR, you know, that can be newsworthy. So
Yes. So,
all right.
On that note, I will introduce our amazing guest for the day.
Yay.
Stacia Crawford. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Stacia is a two-time Emmy-winning producer and the founder and CEO of Stay Ready Media. I like that. You got to stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. Stay Ready Media. She has 35 years of experience in the broadcast industry and has positioned her to be a skilled communication specialist, media trainer, and publicity strategist. She is a powerhouse journalist who has mastered helping entrepreneurs, authors, and industry leaders get massive media exposure on TV, radio, magazines, and podcasts. I think we might need to talk to you after this too. Anyway, you know, I'll put it. Stacia has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, BET, MSNBC, WGN, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, Vanity Fair, Real Simple, and she talked to Oprah. I'm going to just say she was in the Oprah magazine, so I'm going to say that Stacia talked to Oprah.
Yes.
And so
just to name a few.
Just
crazy.
That's not even all of them. All the letters. She had all the ABCs. I'm just really excited that she agreed to talk to us today. So without further ado, please welcome Stacia Crawford.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, Stacia. We are very excited to have you. So we're going to kick it off. We have a few fun questions to ask you just to get the seat warm, break the ice. Yes. So the first question is, what is your superpower? If you could have any superpower, what would that superpower be?
My superpower is that I am an incredible connector. And I think part of that comes from my career as a journalist, having to be in so many spaces and so many places, meeting so many people. And that's just kind of how my brain works. So I'm always thinking when I'm talking to people, oh, you need to know this person, or you need to be in this space, or this is what's going on. And so my brain just kind of thinks always connecting people in places, connecting people to people, connecting people to money. So that's my power.
So you must know everyone. That's what it sounds like to me.
I know a lot of people.
It's your job to know everybody.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep. I mean, for 35 years as a producer, that basically is my job, to know the who, what, where, when, why of any and everything. Now, of course, I don't know everything, but I know a little bit about everything. And if I don't know the answer, I know how to get the answer, or I know someone who can lead me to the answer.
That's right. Resourceful.
Amazing.
That's what that sounds
like.
Yes. Very.
I love that. It's an awesome superpower.
Yes. All right. Our next question is, what's your favorite book, or one of your favorites?
One of my favorite books, which it's always in rotation for me. So typically when I'm reading, I always have something that's personal development, professional development, and then I also love to have a little fiction on the side. So outside of the Bible, because I am a God girl, my favorite book is called The Happy Pocket, A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And I love that book because it is a mindset shifter. I've been reading it. It's just been on repeat for probably the last 4 or 5 years. It's always in rotation for me, because I think there's so many different aspects in there and concepts that I can relate to my life, to my business, to my family. And it's just really helped me to up level who I am as a person, as an entrepreneur, and even as a mom. So it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yes.
Okay, A Happy Pocket Full of Money is the name
Yes,
of the
we
book.
got to add that to our favorite.
To our list.
Yeah, and I need to
Yeah,
read
it
it. That
will
sounds
blow
great.
your mind. I've probably read it 5 or 6 times. Every time I read it, I highlight it in a different color because different nuggets just hit differently. Every time I read it, I'm a different person. I'm reading it with a new set of eyes. I have a whole new perspective. And so even when I look through this book and I thumb through it, it's like a rainbow inside because, the first time I read it, the stuff that was in yellow hit me. Then there was blue, and then there was pink, and then there was purple, and then there was green. So it is just like a rainbow of life-changing concepts in that book. I recommend it for everybody, particularly as an entrepreneur.
Thank you.
Amazing.
That's a great recommendation.
That
Okay.
is. And then our final question, we're gonna lead into it, and then you're gonna, receive and let us know. So we're gonna start by talking about what we're drinking today. So it's Two Mics, Two Glasses podcast. And today we are drinking something that has a difficult name. So it is the Bomon Shampe Angel Red Moscato dessert wine. So this is a fancy dessert wine from another country.
The little fancy bottle.
Yes, in a fancy bottle. And so we're drinking Red Moscato today. What are
Okay,
you
can we
drinking?
switch? Because
We'll send you a bottle next time.
I just got ice water. It is 95 degrees. It is hot, so I cannot have anything but water. I've been downing water all day. But even water tastes better in a fancy crystal wine glass, right?
Yes,
come
beautiful,
on.
beautiful.
That is a
Cheers
beautiful glass.
to our
Cheers.
beverages for today.
Yes. Very sweet.
Very sweet. I need like a piece of dark chocolate or something with this.
We're Cabernet girls, so this is definitely a change of pace.
It's not bad though. Not bad.
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad.
All right, so hopping right in, Stacia, why don't you, in your own words, why don't you tell us what you do and then how you even got started in the PR field?
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, what I do in the simplest terms is I get people publicity. I get them featured on television, on radio, and magazines. I get people on podcasts. It's all about having a message that you want to share to the world and then finding those spaces to share it. And I come to the PR space in a little bit different way than most people. So I'm actually a journalist. So I'm a trained journalist. I've been a news producer for over 3 decades, and I've worked in some of the largest television markets in the country. I've worked in Baltimore and New Haven, Philadelphia, and I've spent the last 29, almost 30 years in Chicago. And so coming to PR as a journalist is a lot different from people who come to PR, because it's something that they may have studied in school or, something that they've learned by working at a PR agency. Because as a journalist, I was actually a producer, meaning the producer, for a lot of people who may not know, the producer is the person who is responsible for every element, every second of a newscast. So from the second that show goes on until the second it goes off, the producer is the person who is the decision maker who's saying what's going on. And it's also the person.
Was that like the Be Mary Jane role? Have you ever seen
Yes,
this show?
I did. I loved being Mary Jane. Right. So she was an anchor. And it's so funny because even when I watch TV shows that deal with television and particularly television news, I spend half my time yelling at the TV because I'm going, you guys have clearly never worked in a newsroom. That would never happen. Why would you do that? He would. So I'm like, no,
So you're like impossible to watch the
that's
news with.
all wrong. That wouldn't happen. So yeah, but I did love the show.
I've heard that a lot, that like a lot of shows that are supposed to be about like a particular industry or career field are like not accurate at
Oh
all
yeah,
in the
there's
scenarios
no accuracy.
that they
My
present and
yeah.
how.
Yeah, they just need
No
accuracy.
accurate. My husband is a paramedic and he hates 911 specifically for that reason.
Right.
Like hates
So
it.
right. So you see what I'm
I love
saying,
it.
right? I mean, I get it. You have creative license. You got to make it juicy. You got to do all this stuff. But so I get it. But it just gives people the wrong idea of what's actually happening. Because actually, a lot of people tend to think that it's the news anchors who you see on TV who are the decision makers, and that's just not true. It's actually the producer who's the decision maker. The producer is actually the anchor's boss. The producer is the person who makes the decision to say, yes, you can be on the show. Yes, they tell the reporters what stories they're going to cover. They decide where the stories are going to fall in the newscast, how much time they're going to get, when you're going to go to commercial break. They do all of that. And so, as the producer coming to a PR space, I actually have a whole different perspective because as a producer, I would get pitched all the time from people who wanted to be on the show. And rightfully so. I mean, for almost 20 years, I had the highest rated newscast in the city of Chicago. And so everybody wanted to be on my show. And of course, I'm getting pitched tons and tons and tons. And many of those pitches would come from PR experts. And the pitches were just terrible. They were just so bad. I'm like, you might have a good concept, but I could never find it inside of this really dreadful pitch. And so that is really one of the things that led me to start my business. When I left originally, I worked at the ABC station. And if you know anything about, I'm sure you guys from corporate, you get a new general manager, they want to bring their own team in, they're changing things around. And long story
Yep.
short, my show, the highest rated newscast in the city of Chicago, got canceled.
Oh no.
Yes, it got canceled.
Just because there was new management?
Because there was new management and they just wanted to, shake things up, do something different. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But he tried to fix it. Needless to say, they did bring it back a couple years later. But by that time, I was on to something bigger and better.
On to the next.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so originally when that happened, I thought, well, I've got an Ivy League degree in journalism. I've spent 30 years in journalism. Well, basically, when people think of a pitch, they often think, okay, I have to send this pitch and it's got to have any and everything in it. It's got to answer all their questions. And realistically, that's not what you want. What you want in a pitch is you want it as short and succinct as possible. But in most cases, what I find is what's actually missing is the story idea. Most people pitch, they think of a media pitch kind of like when you think of, if you're pitching like your business or, pitching for venture capital, it's totally different. A media pitch is all about the story. What is the story and what is the value that an audience is going to gain from watching an interview with you? And most people actually forget that. They make it all about them. And any producer who's worth their salt is going to see that and they're going to say no.
If I'm pitching, I should think about the end game, like have the end game in mind and make sure I clearly say like, this is the benefit of having us on.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't do that because they just think, okay, well, this is my business. I want to take this opportunity to go on the show and talk about my business. And that's the last thing that you want to do. As entrepreneurs, I know we hate to hear it, but I have to say it a lot. It's like nobody cares about your business. That producer does not care about your business. They want to know. They don't, right? It's like, I know that's your baby and I know that you are dedicated to it, committed to it, but they don't care. They are worried about their audience. They have one job, and that is to deliver incredible content and value, information to their audience. So when you look at your pitch from that perspective, it's a whole different ballgame.
That is good information. I think that applies in other areas too, because when you give your elevator pitch, right? It's like a 30-second. You do talk about your business, but if you did start with like not pain points, you don't want to go get too deep, but if you do start with how like you're solving some sort of problem, I could see that just being a little bit more compelling than talking about, well, I'm an accountant and I'll do your books, and you'll have peace of mind. Well, I guess that's just not
That's
interesting.
just
It's
like,
not
it's
interesting.
salesy, but it's not newsworthy.
Right,
Like,
Right,
exactly,
exactly.
right, and that's
So
just it. You want it to be newsworthy. So think about, what is that audience gonna gain? We're all really busy. Everybody's got so much going on. It's really hard to get somebody to sit down and watch an interview with you, right? We are bombarded with information online, on our TV sets. We're scrolling through our phones. So, those producers are thinking, okay, what is this content gonna do to get that audience to stick around? That's their one and only job. And so you have to think in terms of, how do I help them to do that job? What content do I provide that's going to make people stop and listen and hopefully even share? So that's really the perspective that you have to bring to it.
So when you were on your way out of, I guess, the corporate space, how did you even start to develop the idea to go into PR? I know you started in journalism, you're this big time producer. Like, how did the wheels kind of get turning to take a step into a different direction? And just tell us about your exit journey and like what that looked like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. My exit journey, it was very interesting. So I had, been at the station for a while, almost 20 years. And originally when I started my business, when I first started my business, I was not treating it as a business. I was really treating my business as a hobby. It was just like something that I was doing on the side. So I was working full time as a journalist, but as a journalist, it's like that takes up 90% of my time. So the business thing was kind of like, if I make money, that's great. If I don't, that's fine, because I've got a paycheck that's coming in regardless. And so I did that.
was it just like an interest in making like a little bit of side money? Like, what even made you want to do something on the side when you were so
Well,
busy, with your
originally,
full time job?
well, because when my show got canceled, that award-winning show got canceled, I thought, okay, what do I already have that I can now monetize? And I know I've got 30 years of television under my belt. If I don't know anything else, I know TV. And so that's originally how it started. I was kind of full time in that, but I also had another business. I had a cultural center that I was also running. And so between those two things, I was like, oh, I can replace my television income, no problem. And so I did that for a while. And then I had one of my journalist friends who literally hunted me down. She came to my cultural center and she found me and she was like, we need you. She worked at a competing station from the station that I had been at. And she's like, we need you. Please come work for us. We need you. And I was like, no, I'm not going back into TV. And basically she twisted my arm and I ended up working for a competing station. So I went to the CBS station. I was at ABC at first. So I ended up going to the CBS station where I was like, okay, I'll do this. The station needs a quick turnaround. I'll work there maybe a year or two. Ended up working there for 6 years. And while I was working there, I was still building my business on the side. And so again, it was kind of like a hobby. So I wasn't really like all the systems and processes. I wasn't even really tracking the money that I was making. And then I joined a coaching program. And one of the things that we had to do is we had to know our numbers. You had to know to the penny how much money you were bringing in. And when I looked at it, and I was like, wait, if I'm bringing in this much money from my business as a side hustle, I can only imagine what I could do if I just focused on it full time. And so I decided at that point that I wanted to start building my exit strategy. And I was thinking, okay, I don't know when I'm going to leave. And I was meeting with my coaching group one day, and I was talking to my coach, and I said, yeah, I'm thinking I've got this itch where, I really want to strike out on my own and take this business seriously and do it full time. And she's a very no nonsense coach. And she was like, okay, so when do you want to do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you said you want to do it. When are you going to do it? What's the plan? Come on, let's go. And I was like, well, I don't know. She's like, no, 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 no. You give me a date. I need a date. I was just like, okay. And so I said, April 15th. And here we were. It was February. And I blurted out, I don't know where that date came from. It flew out of my mouth before I could shove it back in. And she was just like, okay, that's it. We're holding you accountable. April 15th is your day. Let's go. And I'm like, oh my God. And so everybody in this group every day, they're like, okay, what are you doing this week? What to move you closer to that goal? We're in March now. Okay, we're coming up on April 15th is right around the corner. And I'm just like, oh my God. And so, yeah, on April 15th, I walked into my boss's office. Actually, I didn't walk into his office. I called him because by that time, this was shortly after COVID, but a lot of producers were still working from home. So I called him and I kept trying to reach him and I couldn't get through. And I'm like, why do I keep getting voicemail? I'm calling him. I know he can see it's me. And I said, well, maybe this is a sign that I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this. And so then I called the assignment desk, and the way the newsroom is set up, the news director's office is like this big glass office in the middle of the room so everybody can see him. And so when I called, I was like, hey, is he in his office? And he's like, yeah, he's in there. I'm looking right at him. I'm like, well, I've been calling him and he's not answering the phone. So of course, now I'm thinking this is really a sign that I am not supposed to do this today. And I was like, okay, fine, bye. And then like 5 minutes later, he calls me and he's like, yeah, I just had a crazy day, but I see that you called. What's up? And I was like, oh, I was just calling to let you know before I send in my official written resignation that I'm going to be leaving. This is my official 2 weeks notice. And he was devastated. He was very supportive. And his first question was, what station are you going to? Who do I need to talk to? What do you need? Do you need more money? Will you want a new schedule? What do you? I was like, no, no, no. I don't need anything. I'm actually, going to embrace my own company and run it full time. And he was very supportive. And so, he was just like, okay, I get it. I understand. If there's anything that you need, please let us know. And so, yeah, by the end of the month, I was transitioning out and I have not looked back.
I'm sure you're enjoying this episode, but we wanted to quickly pop in to let you know about the cool swag we're wearing today. AMW Apparel is a line of inspirational and entrepreneurial clothing for those looking to stand out and make a statement to their following. We provide comfortable and high-quality t-shirts, sweatshirts, tank tops, and more. Enter code 2mics2glasses, which is the number 2, MICS, the number 2 again, GLASSES, with no spaces, for 10% off your first order at shopwithamw.com. Link in the description. We appreciate your support. Amazing. Wow. Amazing. That's so exciting.
2 months.
Yeah, the 2 months is something. But when you were saying about how your coaching friends were like, okay, it's March, it's April, it's whatever, like it's time. It reminded me of how I did that with Lauren when she said her date. Like we talked about like what date she was going to leave corporate because she left, was it a year ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and then we were like getting closer. I was like, okay, is it happening? This is still the date?
I was so anxious, like, I don't know why I thought I had so much, like, I don't know. I like gave a month's notice. Like I was doing
like, why are you giving so much notice?
Like, why are you giving them so much time? I was just like, you know what? They could have told me to leave early, huh? Couldn't they? Well, maybe, but I don't know. It's nerve-wracking. So I completely understand. And then I also love how you were very transparent in saying like, okay, is this a sign that maybe I shouldn't do this? 'Cause I remember when you were leaving, you were like, I think they offered you like a contract position or something.
Yeah, I was like, I was being hard-headed. So I had gotten a sign from God that I was supposed to do it like at a particular date and time or whatever. And I needed 4 more signs before I actually like went through with it, because I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe not, like maybe that wasn't the sign. And I literally got like 4 sides over the course of the year.
Signs are powerful.
Which I was like,
that is, I mean, and I actually did that too. Like one of the things that I like to do is on Sundays, I like to go to open houses, and I'll go to these like houses that are like $4 and $5 million. I'm like, no, I don't have that in my bank account, but I can, girl can dream. And right before I went to this, right before I had finally given my official notice, I said, God, if this is really what I'm supposed to do, I need you to give me a sign. And one thing that I know is that I believe in the power of your voice. The voice is the most powerful creation tool on the planet. And I knew that if I just spoke it, that this is what I want to leave. I want to build this business. I want to get it to this level. And so I said, well, can I get a sign? And I like pineapples, so I have like all kinds of pineapple decor, little ceramic pineapples, all kinds of pineapple shirts, whatever. I just love pineapples. And so I said, well, if it's really time for me to leave, can you show me a blue pineapple? And I think that was like on a Wednesday or Thursday. And so I went to this open house on Sunday and I walked into this house. That house was gorgeous. I mean, every single thing in there was just curated so beautifully. It was staged, it was awesome. And so I walked in and I'm talking to the realtor and I'm like, oh, I love the furniture. I love the floors. The molding is gorgeous. Oh, look how they staged this. And I walked into the kitchen, and in the kitchen, the whole back wall was all glass. And they had these shelves in like the little seating area in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, I could see myself cooking in this kitchen because I love to cook. And I glanced over, and there was a blue pineapple on the shelf in the window. And I was just like, oh my God, like, are you serious right now? And all I could do was laugh. And the realtor's looking at me like I'm crazy because he's like, what is wrong with this woman? Why? I'm laughing uncontrollably. And I'm just like, okay, God, I see you. I see you. It's time for me to go. It is time for me to shut the door, leave television, do my PR business full time. And yeah, for like 6 months, that little blue pineapple was my screensaver on my phone. So whenever I felt like, have I made the right decision? Was this a mistake? Every time I looked at my phone, it was like, no, this was meant to be. You just got to walk that path and keep going.
I love that. I love that.
And I think like just from a spiritual perspective, because we also, we read that Bible and stuff. A lot of times we like to ignore signs or calls, and we create excuses. We ask for more confirmation. We get confirmation. We don't think that it's it. We think that things are coming from like internal or external, and we just don't trust the God that we say we have faith in, right? Mm-hmm. And taking that leap and trusting those signs and trusting what you see, like you got this, like trust your gut.
Absolutely.
So that's super encouraging.
Yeah.
Yes. So Stacia, I saw online you had fairly recently, I guess in the last 12 months or so, hit your like first 20K months and all of these different milestones in your business.
Yeah.
For someone that may be interested, and congratulations.
Thank you.
For someone who may be interested in running their own, PR business and getting to 10K months, 20K months, and I feel like you did it in a relatively quick time once you were really locked in.
Yeah.
Can you tell them like some strategies on, how do you go from opening that business to getting to your first 10K or 20K?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the key to me doing that was understanding, like one of the things that we talked about is knowing your worth. When I first started, I was just like, well, I was literally charging people like, I think when I started, I was charging like $300. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll get you on TV for $300. And of course, at that point I had people who were coming to me. They're like, yeah, they're referring me and all this stuff. But I was also wearing myself out. It was exhausting. And I finally had to come to this realization of looking at the value that I was bringing to these businesses. It's like, you're literally getting on TV and you're getting in front of millions of people. What is that worth to you? And I'm like, that's worth way more than $300. I was really looking at it as more of a time for dollars. Like, oh, if I spend this many hours, then it's worth this much. And because it was easy for me, because I already had, hundreds of contacts in the media from, being in television for 30 years, it was really easy for me to do that. And so because I was thinking that it was easy, I undervalued what I brought to the marketplace. And what was key to me really changing and exploding my income was deciding that I was no longer going to be undervalued by anyone. And I certainly wasn't going to undervalue myself. That meant that I had to be crystal clear, even when I was talking to potential clients, about what they were getting. So you're not just getting, somebody who can make a phone call or send an email on your behalf and get you on TV. What you're literally getting is thousands, in many cases, tens of thousands worth of media exposure. And once I shifted that, it changed my business. Like I was literally able to replace my producer income. I made six figures in like, I want to say 4 months. And then this year, because my coach is all about know your numbers, I've literally more than doubled what I made last year. And so it's just staying clear to the vision, and just being committed to it. Every month is not a 40K month, but still being clear in what I offer and what I bring to the table, and being very super, super honed in on who I serve. That was a game changer.
Yeah. So, when you talked about branding and we talked about knowing your ideal clients, your ideal customer, that's being super locked in on knowing who you
Yes.
serve. And that's a great example of how that will serve you well.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
If you're
it
doubling.
absolutely, because I mean, even in the beginning, I was like, well, I can help everybody. I can find a story, and that's another one of my superpowers is I can find a story in anything. I can meet somebody standing in line at the grocery store, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a news story in there. But also recognizing that just because everybody has a story doesn't necessarily mean that it's a story that's worthy of television. Everybody can't afford to pay that. And so, that's why I was so, because I'm like, oh, I'm working with these small entrepreneurs. All they can afford is $300. So, okay, I'll take $300. I had to switch that because I was like, I can't grow my business to $1 million working with people who only have $300. So, I had to get laser focused on who I serve.
How did you capture the attention of that new audience that you were going to serve, or your new target client? What were like some marketing techniques that you've been using, to get in front of them?
Yeah, mostly, I use mostly three marketing techniques. One of them is I use my social media in a whole different way than I did before. My social media now is primarily for marketing. And that's not just, saying, hey, here I am, but it's me sharing my client results. It's me getting in front of those people who are actively looking for PR so that they can find me. And then the other thing that I do is I do a lot of networking. So I go to a lot of events, getting in front of people, again, who have magnificent stories, who built great businesses, and who just need that attention to get them to that next level. So networking has served me very well. And then I get a lot of referrals. So I make sure that with every client, I over deliver. I just blow their minds with what they think is possible. And then they're happy to refer me to other people. Birds of a feather flock together. So when I'm working with brilliant entrepreneurs or corporate leaders or thought leaders, they have those same types of people in their circle, and they're happy to refer me.
Something you said was that you do a lot of networking. And so I know that you have amazing connections from your like really extensive background in media. But if I'm like a new person trying to get into this PR business and I don't have those same, ties to media like you would, what type of networking, like what kind of techniques in networking could I use to try to build those relationships? Like, obviously, they're not going to completely replicate what you've done because you've put in work, blood, sweat, tears. You were the boss for a really long time, and you have like really given yourself like this amazing reputation. And if I'm new, I don't have all of that. So, like, what would you recommend a new person kind of? How could they start out and kind of start paving the way to get to where you
Yeah.
are?
I think one of the things is you have to realize that you have to use what you have. And some of the resources that we live in a digital age where every TV station has social media. They all have digital channels. Every journalist is on social media. And while they're on there to share the work that they're doing, you can actually be following them, finding out what types of stories do they do, right? What types of stories are they looking for? Building those connections online and then transitioning those into in-person relationships. I have some clients that I've worked with because one of the services that I offer for those who may not have the budget to hire me to do their PR, I also do workshops and seminars, and I have programs where I teach them exactly what to do to get the same type of high level media exposure that I get from my upper level clients. And one of the things that people often overlook is the power of social media. And so that's generally where I would tell anybody to start. Start with, what's right there on your front door, what's in your backyard, what's a TV station that's in your city, and build relationships with those journalists. That means, following them on their social media, commenting, really paying attention to the types of stories that they do because of the way that they work now. It used to be a journalist might turn a story every couple of days. Now, no, they have to do 2, 3 stories per day. And so they're always looking for content. And so I always tell people, why can't you be that content? That's you helping them do their job. And when you help them do their job, they will love you for life. They absolutely will, because I mean it's a difficult job, and it's changing now because now, they're not only reporting, but they're also, they have to edit. Same thing with producers. They're editing, they're making graphics, they've got to deal with social media, they've got to cut stuff for the website. They're doing a million different things. So when you can offer a story idea and present it in a way that makes it easy for them, it's a shoe in. It's an easy yes.
Yeah, amazing. And doing that research and knowing what they're looking for and just kind of coming super prepared, and
Yeah, absolutely.
that kind of gets you in the door.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
absolutely, it gets you in the door. And then I say, try and think even in terms of, when I say think like a journalist, you also have to be super aware of what are the new things that are going on in your industry, what sets you apart from your competition, and what's happening in the world. And then find a way to build a connection between those things. That is what makes the most incredible content that any journalist would want to jump on.
Amazing. Every time you talk, it just makes me think of more and more questions, but I'm going to contain it in the
Well,
time that we
I
have.
don't know. I do have one slightly scandalous question.
Oh,
Just a
scandalous.
little.
Ooh.
Okay.
Since we're in media.
Okay.
So, in this day and age of people being on social media and grabbing for attention, there's a lot of times we see things go viral for not the best reasons, and we see a lot of like fake news, a lot of like quick headlines. As someone who is in PR, if you're trying to get into the PR or media field, like what would be your advice to kind of stay like relevant and on top of things with all the noise that's happening? Like how do I set myself apart when there is like our attention span is 2 seconds, and we're like this all day, right? And then there's just all this noise that's like, oh, this news is, it might be fake, but it's like eye catching. So like, like what would be your suggestion on combating that and still kind of coming out, like kind of rising to the top?
Yeah, I think with that, it's knowing what you offer and just being super clear about that. And then, because a lot of times we live in this world of comparison, right? We're always comparing ourselves to everybody else. But when you put your blinders on and you're just super focused on what you're doing, then nothing else matters. Now, I'm not saying that, not to be aware of what your competitors are doing, because sometimes you may be inspired from them, inspired by them. But I think that, when you're just super clear on what your goal is and kind of building that bridge to how am I going to get there, and you've got to know what sets you apart. So the only way you know what sets you apart from your competitors is to see what your competitors are doing. But what a lot of people tend to do, and we see this, especially on social media, is they tend to duplicate and replicate. And so I often say, when everybody else is zigging, you want to zag, because the media doesn't want, just somebody who's just going to reiterate what everybody else is saying. How can you say something that is different? How can you stand out and be different, look different, sound different?
Are there particular social media platforms that people who work in the media are hanging out on more? I've always heard that it was Twitter, but do you think that's a good one?
Yeah,
Are there other
I
good
do.
ones?
If you're thinking in terms of like finding journalists that you can pitch, a lot of times you will find them
Yeah.
on X, right, formerly known as Twitter, and then a lot of them use Facebook and LinkedIn as well. Now, LinkedIn, you will find that many of them are not necessarily active in terms of like using the platform for their content so much or to get pitches. But LinkedIn is a great research tool when you're trying to find journalists. So that's really what I would say. And then I would warn against actually pitching on those outlets, but it's great for your research to see what stories are they doing. And often they will tell you when they're looking for certain types of stories. Many times they'll be in a morning meeting and the producer will say, okay, you're going to do a story on XYZ. The first thing that reporter is going to do is they go to, Facebook, or they might go to Twitter and say, hey, I'm doing a story on XYZ. Is there anybody who might want to talk to me? Who can I interview? So just kind of, being connected to them in social media in that way kind of gives you a leg up for what they're looking for. But what we also have inside of my programs is we have databases of journalists who actually like email us and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of person to talk to, or I'm looking for an expert in this. So we are able to filter all of those out to our clients. Like we had a client, as a matter of fact, that I talked to just this morning, who was featured on a news story on just 2-3 days ago, because I had a journalist who called me and she's like, hey, look, here's a story that I'm doing. I need someone to talk to. And I look at my Rolodex of my clients and I say, hey, here's a perfect person for you. And because of that media, he's since gotten 2 other media interviews from that one interview. So that's kind of how you have to think about it. The other thing that we do in my programs is we actually have roundtables. We call them our producer roundtables, where we have Zooms with my clients and we bring the journalists in. So we may have producers from Good Morning America or the Today Show, or, Drew Barrymore, Kelly Clarkson, Jennifer Hudson. And so you actually get to be on the Zoom with them and pitch them in real time. So that's how we actually give you access that you would not otherwise be able to get. And you get it much faster.
That's dope.
Oh, it sounds like people just need to work with you.
Yes, yes.
Because you are what? The connector of people. Okay.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, it has been honestly a pleasure. I wish we had more time to chat, but unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our interview. But before we go, please share how people can get in touch with you, any amazing big projects you have coming up, and just ways we can stay connected.
Words of advice.
Yeah,
sure.
and
Yes.
your lasting words.
Best way to reach me is find me on Facebook, Stacia Crawford. I'm right there on Facebook. I do some of my marketing there, but also I provide a lot of value as well. So I provide a lot of tips, strategies. I do my live streams where I've literally had people who've contacted me and said, hey, I watched your live stream and I did what you said and I got booked on, this channel, or I did an interview with this magazine. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I want. Because I know that there's so many out there, people who have incredible messages to share. They have beautiful businesses that are amazing and impactful. And the only way they get to make that impact is by reaching more people. So I'm really honored to be able to be that conduit to put them in front of more people.
Amazing.
It's amazing. You're
is.
so cool.
Thank you.
So Facebook, find you on Facebook.
Yes, find me on Facebook,
Yeah.
Stacia Crawford. My company is Stay Ready Media. You can go to my website, stayreadymedia.com. All the juicy stuff is on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
Love it.
Awesome. So with that,
Well, we didn't get our final words. Do you have any final words of advice on how someone should get started or can get started in the PR or journalism industry?
I really, for final words, I would just say get out of your own way. A lot of people, I often hear, well, I'm not ready yet, or, I'm not special. Why would anybody want to talk to me? Why would I want to be in the news, or why would I want to be in a magazine? But you really got to shed those limiting beliefs and recognize that you are valuable. You bring immense value to the world. And just imagine how much more your business could grow if only more people knew about you. So get out of your own way. A lot of people will say, well, I'm just not ready yet. Trust me, you are. I'm not saying that, you need to go pitch Oprah tomorrow, or, be on the Good Morning America, next week. But you can start right where you are. Start with your local station. Start with your local newspaper. Just start.
yeah.
Just start.
And I guess we'll toast to getting out of your own way.
Yes. So,
Cheers to that.
toast